legacy and as a memory to your father, grandfather, and to your family. And I said, I'm going to put it on title. So if, in case, God forbid, something happens to me and I'm not around one day, and this building's got to keep going, it's in writing on title that I said that these stones have to be reincorporated into the building. So nobody can not do it. And the lawyers were like, oh, okay, if you want to do that, go ahead, but there's no big deal in it. The best thing I ever did was back in October when I closed, registered that on title. Why? Fast forward, never even thinking about heritage or not even thinking about anybody coming in, when all of the issues in January had come up, when we were going to start the demolition of the site, and everybody said, put heritage on it, and we had legal building permits to take the site down, I came out in the public meeting and I said, guys, before anybody even thought about heritage, we thought about it, and the stones that we removed, I actually put on title that I'm going to reincorporate and put into the new building and create a city public realm with it. And I did it back in October 2014. And so it wasn't something we just thought about now. We thought about it before anybody else thought about it. And we registered it and time-stamped it on title so that it was there. That was a very important, what I would say, consideration, because it allowed us to build what we're going to be building now, and it showed the city and showed the stakeholders and showed everybody that we were thinking about all these other things that nobody was thinking about, and that we were being responsible to what we were doing amongst the community there. So that allowed us to fast track the program. It got us out of the heritage zone. It allowed us to continue to proceed, and we're now anticipating having full approvals in March of 2016, which is one of the fastest site plan submissions on a tower this size. It's less than, we submitted in March, so it's basically 12 months from the time we did the submission to the time we're getting approvals and permits. And we'll start excavation tieback shoring in March of 2016 as well. The building will take us 5 years to build. 3 years to get the retail operational, and then another 2 years for the residential. We're using very unconventional building techniques. I'm the general contractor on the project. I'm also the general contractor on all my projects. All the buildings we've built to date, we have not subbed it out. I actually build them. So we're the GCs on all of our projects. Hazelton we did, Davenport we did, the homes we did, and even this, because I haven't yet found a general contractor that I could sub it out to, that I trust, that will actually execute the project to the level of finishes and the details and the quality that we do. Because we actually micromanage it. Our whole team, infrastructure team, is in-house. All the marketing, all the branding, all the sales, all the customer satisfaction, all the carry-on, all of the pre-delivery inspections, all the post-delivery inspections, everything we do internally. We don't sub it out. We don't give it to a broker. We don't. We do that all in-house, literally. That way I can control the environment and control the quality and control the customer experience from beginning to end, and not have anything fall through the cracks. And when you're serving that market in the high-end luxury, those customers expect that. So even the finishes are all everything. We sub it out, but it's all controlled in-house. So on this project, we're developing things in terms of the construction where, again, it's very unique. We're going to have the retail built and operational along with the underground parking, and have that fully functioning, because we have to get the retail tenants in there by 2018, by Christmas. That's what we're right now promising. And then building a crash deck on top and building the residential tower, continue to build it while the retail on Yonge and Bloor is fully finished. Using very unique building systems and elevator systems, where there's no hoist elevators, there's no, using a jump system, very technical but very simple ways of doing this. And it allows us to expedite the build. And we've learned how to do that now in these buildings that I was doing on Hazelton Davenport, because we were challenging what I call conventional construction methodology. Even the way we were doing the underground works, the way we were doing the waterproofing works, the way we were doing all of it. So it allowed us to expedite and to finish the projects faster than most of our competitors were, and do it at a much higher quality level than anybody else was doing in terms of what our competitors. So I'm not saying we do things better, we do things different. And everything that we're doing is different than what is standard in terms of how we're servicing. Parallel to that, we looked at other markets. We started in Ottawa. Yesterday, I was just saying, and my apologies for canceling the last meeting that I wasn't able to do, we just got the first designated landmark building in Canada, in Ottawa, where the Urban Review Design Panel, the Architectural Design Panel, the City of Ottawa, and basically a whole body of architects have designated the building we're going to build in Ottawa as being a landmark building, which means that when it's built, they're actually putting a heritage designation on the building, brand new. Those are the types of project that we're looking at. We're looking at where we can come in and add value, where we're going to change things, where we're going to do something that is going to create a very significant impact to the area, to the neighborhood, and really it's about creating something that's got architectural excellence to it. We want to raise the bar and say, what we can do to sort of create an excellence in architecture and create an excellence in terms of the building, to put Toronto and put Canada on what I call sort of the international map of architecture, the same way that you go to Chicago and they're now doing architectural tours and showing you all these other buildings you can go and see, or you go to New York and you do that. We haven't really done that in Canada. We don't have buildings we can point to. And I think what we're trying to do is start a trend, or start to get every other developer to think, let's try to do things different, and let's start to build buildings that have a much higher calling and a much higher level of quality in architecture, and invest the money and invest the dollars into it and create a market, because the market's there. Everyone's nervous that the market wasn't there, and I think we proved that the market is there. 4 years ago I would hear all the time, there's no market to serve that, people won't pay that, but they do. We've proven it. And I really applaud everybody to sort of look at how, in the industry, what everybody can do together to sort of raise the bar and raise the standards in the buildings that are being developed, constructed, architecturally done, because ultimately these buildings are going to be here long after we're gone. And you want to build a legacy, and you want to build something where people can point to and say, wow, you've done something that's iconic. There's real substance to it. And that's really been my passion. That's really been what's driven me, is to look at bringing in the best retailers, the best homeowners, and incorporating the best materials, and creating a market that's going to sort of wow what that area is. And I think, the real game changer has been Yonge and Bloor and this corner. It's also the first building in Canada that's over $1 billion in construction. We've never had a residential building in Canada that's running over $1 billion. It's a very expensive, it's a very unique, very profitable development. Hopefully, by the time we're done, it's early, can't tell yet, but maybe 5 years from now, let's see what I say. But it's the last year has been an incredible process. It's been a very exciting process, and everything that we thought and what we believed economically was going to happen with this building has happened. We've actually exceeded it. We had pro forma, $350 on the rents, and we actually hit $100 above that, which was unbelievable. Our own banks couldn't believe it. And so it really shows that if you build it and you do things right, and you listen to the market, it will reward you. And the market is there, and I think everyone's sort of expecting that, because I think the last number of years, the commodity-based product that has been there in the downtown core, it serves a niche, it serves a market, and it's great, and it's profitable, and it does it, but this market was underserved. The high-end luxury market, nobody was really addressing it. There was maybe 1 or 2 buildings that was really addressing that high-end luxury market. And so there's a lot of now, international immigrants, we're one of them, but coming into Canada every year. They're very sophisticated, they're wealthy, they come from every country in the world, and they're looking for product and investments in a home that is similar to what they have seen as they've traveled the world. It's no longer that, I haven't seen this. They're very sophisticated customers, they're very experienced, they're very cultured, and they're looking to have that same high-end quality and those high-end brands, and they're gravitating towards that. And that's sort of the niche market that we're in. The other thing was interesting is, when I started in this business, what I was building was product that was too expensive for most of the smaller developers, but too small for a lot of the, what I'd say, the bigger developers. Now it's a very different situation, because we're going into markets now where we're really serving both ends of the market, where it's really just now, it's not about size, it's more about the quality and more about quantifying and improving an area that's already very mature, but that nobody has sort of come in and done something unique with it. And so that's sort of where I guess my heart is, and I've spoken enough at this time, but it sort of gives you a very good, quick history on sort of what the last few years has been. I'm happy to take any questions, or if there's something I haven't answered, I'm happy to answer. I hope I was able to address sort of
Of course, no. I have maybe the first
Sure.
question. Going from 2007 from your townhouses to Lower West, size and it's a big change. And what has been your biggest challenge to find an organization or system who can follow you and support your ideas into this very, very rapid change?
It's a great question. The biggest, I was building the process systems to expand. So even when I was doing in 2007 the townhouses on Lytton, I was putting in all the process systems, the ISO 9000 management system. We're the only builder with that right now currently. We wrote the book on the ISO 9000. We brought in a company from Switzerland and we said we're going to put process management in place. And we're going to register it with ISO 9000 in Switzerland, and we're going to put a system in place that's scalable, that you can really scale and grow, and everything is going to be internal. Sales, accounting, marketing, building, construction, general contracting, architectural, engineering, everything in-house. The biggest challenge has been not setting up the structure or the process management. But ironically, the biggest challenge in the last, I'd say, 5-6 years has been the capital, the capitalization. The money, the equity to actually grow and do these projects. Because when I came out and I said, this is the vision, we want to do it, nobody believed me. They said, I'm 43 years old. I was under 40. I was 30-something when I started. And they said, you have no experience, you're too young, you don't have enough money, and what you want to do is not possible because nobody else is doing it. So if nobody else is doing it, it can't be possible. Right? And the prices that you're going to need to support what you're doing is also not possible. So the biggest challenge was finding what I call investors or equity and even the capitalization on construction financing that believed and took a leap of faith and believed in what we were doing and believed in the vision and believed that the market was there. That's been probably one of the biggest challenges, especially jumping from townhouses, because they said, you can imagine going from townhouses to Bloor, that's a very big jump. Or going from 133 to Bloor is a very big jump. But it was the same jump I'd taken from going from houses going into 133 Hazelton or 181. The jump was exponential. But I would say the biggest challenge is really, this is the most expensive, I would say, industry in the world. I don't think there's any other business that takes as much capital as this sector does. There's very few. And I think the biggest challenge for me was attracting the capital and the financing requirements, because I'm by myself. I don't have partners. We have, lenders. And it's not my father's business. I started this by myself. It wasn't a family business. I started it really with zero, with one house. And I borrowed the money. So I was actually negative when I first started. It wasn't even starting at zero because you had to borrow the money to build it. And that's been probably one of the biggest challenges, I would say, in the growth. But then we got a following, we got traction. People, the banks believed, they saw it, we executed, we built it, we delivered it. They saw who your customers are. They say you judge it by who your customers are. So when the bank were getting the APSs and they were looking at it and they were realizing you got 3 billionaires that are living in the building, these are some of the richest families in Toronto that bought into it, it changed their whole philosophy. 90% of our building has no mortgages on it from the people that bought the units. The bank said, we've never seen that. When we were getting the approval letters, for construction financing, you have to send in the agreements and they have to make sure that they can have the ability to close, your mortgages. 95% of the letters came in from private banking, one letter saying, RBC Private Banking, Mr. Smith has the ability to close. They weren't it was a very different, so when they saw that those customers were there, it gave us a lot of credibility. But that's one of the biggest challenges, I would say, is capital. And I think in this industry, you can't have enough of it. because there's always opportunities, there's always growth, there's always these once-in-a-lifetime opportunities, and you can't seize them all because you have to wait until this project finishes, take the capital, deploy it into the other, and there's a timing issue to it. So that's been our biggest challenge. But the growth in the office, not an issue. Growth on execution, not an issue. We're limited by really the bandwidth of capital. And this is very unique engineering too. Like these buildings, one of the other things with One Bloor is it's one of the only buildings in Canada that has this type of structural engineering into it. So it's a very complex building, not been built before. There's maybe 7 or 8 buildings in the world that have this type of structural engineering built into it. In London, the Gherkin, the Hearst Tower in New York. So there's a lot of unique aspects to this building that are also very unique to it, that make it very special for what it is. So it'll be exciting. Yes.
Is this property located in front of the Trump building?
No, it's Yonge and Bloor. Trump is down on near Scotia Plaza in the financial core. This is at the southwest corner of Yonge and Bloor. So it's at, there's another high-rise, One Bloor East that's up. One Bloor East, right? That's 70, I think, 5 stories, or I don't
That's a
know
brand
like
new
that.
one too, right?
That's a brand new one too, yeah. This is at Bloor Street in Yonge. The Trump is further south in the financial core. Sorry, there was, yeah.
Well, just congratulations, it's very, very impressive, and you have really made us all proud for your unit, and we thank you for that. If you can get to the building, and what is the floor area of each level? We're going to use this extra structure kind of type of building. What do you have in each floor area as far as the area is concerned, and how many levels have to go down?
So it's 8 levels down of underground parking.
8 levels.
It's 113 feet, just to give you an idea. The floor area of the underground parking is 25,000 square feet. Then when you come up, the 8 floors of retail is 18,000 square feet per floor. And then the residential goes into a 9,500 square foot floor plate per floor. It narrows up to 90, so each floor plate's 9,000. A typical tower is 7,500 square feet. We're at 9,500 square feet on each floor plate, and then 18,000 on the retail.
And how many unit residential?
400. 400 units residential.
Thank you.
Is it a tubular structure?
No, it's an exoskeleton 4 mega columns that come on the exterior and run down the building. So there's no, the core doesn't come down into the ground and foundation. It spreads and then comes into the exoskeleton. That's why the retail has no columns, or because the core would come right through and you'd have columns everywhere. The core doesn't come through the retail at all. It actually goes through a mega column and then expands out. Yes.
The cost of uncontaminated, as you call it,
Retail space.
retail space, like don't have any columns and stuff like that, compared to the regular building, percentage-wise, how much extra cost do you think this building will have in construction?
$50 a square foot.
$50. So percentage-wise.
Hard cost.
Percentage-wise compared to the regular, like 50%, 30%?
25%.
25% more expensive. But on the other side, you'll get more rental.
Here's the way I look at it. You invest, let's say, another 20% or 25% in your structural engineering, your forming. 22% of your budget is your forming costs, right? Typically in a high rise. So you're investing another 25% of that 22% in that. But you're creating something that is unique and that there's no competition to it. So when you go to a tenant, a high-end tenant, retailer, like the high-end brands that we're talking about, unfortunately, I'd like to tell everybody, but I'm under confidentiality agreements with them and they have to announce it. But I think everyone's heard the rumors of who they are. And it's a very unique product, and they pay for that product. They pay for that space because that space doesn't exist, and they need that space to sell their product and to create the experience. It's more about the experience for these high-end brands. So companies like Tom Ford and Christian Dior and Chanel and Zara and all these other brands, they're creating a space and an experience for the customer, and that's why they are who they are. Right? That's why they're the biggest retailers in the world, and they've created the biggest sales in the world, is because that emotional experience is being experienced in their stores, not only with their product, but with the actual shopping experience. And it allows you to charge a much higher premium. If you look at high-end brands, that's what it's all about. You invest a little bit more in the watch, but you can charge thousands of dollars more for that watch. So your profit margin jumps. Concrete is concrete. Whether I pour that concrete in Scarborough, or in Markham, or in Richmond Hill, or in Yorkville, the costs are the same. Steel is the same cost. Windows cost me the same. Drywall costs us all the same. Your costs are pretty much fixed, no matter where you're building. It's only the top line revenue that's going to be the variable. So what I wanted was margin, like real margin. And I said the only way I'm going to get real margin is my top line revenue, because whether I build it in Richmond Hill or I build it in Yorkville, it's going to cost me the same. You're going to be subbing it out to Morale or Drywall Company, or you're going to have, Formicon. Your steel is $4,500 a metric ton. It doesn't matter if I'm placing it in Richmond Hill or I'm placing it in Yorkville. But your top line revenue is where you're going to have that buffer. And if you invest in the locations and the areas, and you invest in the building, and let's say it costs you 22% or 25% more, but you're getting double the price. So you've got a very big margin that normally you wouldn't get.
And that's the same on the residential level?
Huge.
Like,
Yeah, on the
you said
residential
11
levels,
foot, 11 foot
it's
ceiling?
it's about 20. Our residential costs are, no, the residential cost runs us about, 20, about 20%, 25% more as well than the typical. But then, we're at $1,200 a foot. Right? So, you got that delta that's $500-600 a square foot more than what you would normally see. Right? So it's a very different, it's a very unique sector.
And you said the 11-foot ceiling on the residential, probably that uncontaminated column
Space.
area spacing will give you a thicker beam size, correct?
Correct.
That's why you need a space on the residential height area too.
Well, it gives us. You're talking about transfer beams, or you're talking about the beams in the
ceiling,
floor slabs?
So, yeah, if
The floor slabs are thicker,
Yeah,
but we have 10-foot clear ceilings.
10 foot. that's
Clear.
Okay.
So with no, like all the mechanicals, everything's in there, and 10-foot clear. So you have no bulkheads coming down below 10 feet. It's clear space. We run everything in that 12 inches.
And finished floor to finished floor is 11 foot?
Just over 11 foot. It's about 11.6.
11.6, okay.
Yeah. Floor to slab.
So the superstructure is steel or concrete?
Steel and concrete.
Mm.
It's steel with concrete poured in.
No,
So it's
composite.
both.
Yeah.
It's both. That way the steel has an R factor and an insulation factor as well.
Mm.
What were some of the challenges on the approval side of things from the city?
Whoa.
I
I can give you a list. Shadows, wind, big one's wind. Wind, shadows, the heritage was a big one, we overcame that. What I did is we created working groups. So what we've been doing for the last 4 months, 5 months, is we've had working group meetings with all the stakeholders. Community associations, the resident associations, and we meet with them and we hear all the issues. And then we start to reverse engineer the building with them, addressing all their concerns. And start to incorporate and make them part of the building. We did this in Ottawa, we did this in all of our sites. When you start to work with most people don't want to talk to the residents, don't want to talk because there's this friction all the time. So, and you think it's like the developer versus the city, or the developer versus the stakeholders. It's not like that. What I do is, I want to become best friends with the residents. And I want to say, guys, this is your neighborhood. We're going to build this together. We're going to collaborate together. And let's figure out how we're gonna do this. And let's figure out what the best way is that we're gonna build a better building. They actually make me build a better building, the process. Because when you listen, the worst thing in the world is a blank sheet of paper with no limits. You'll get no creativity out of that. If you give a blank sheet of paper to somebody and say design something, you did them a disservice. Because you'll come out with bad design. When you actually have limits and challenges and problems, it makes you think. And makes you actually come up with a better design. So, and also what happens is, these stakeholders, these people in the city and the residents and the community associations, they become emotionally involved in the project. And you want them emotionally invested in the project. Because then they won't let you fail. Because if you fail, they failed. Because now they're invested in the project and they spent a year designing it with you and they don't want you to fail. They actually are now part of the project and they feel like they designed the building and it's their building. And I want that to happen because it's true. So they actually will become your biggest supporters in the city. And they'll stand up and they'll be supporting it and they'll be there behind you because you spent 8-9 months working with them where they have now gotten so emotionally involved in the project, they're not going to let you fail. Because if you fail, they failed. We have not, every one of our buildings, we got a committee, and every one of the buildings we got with the full support of the community. Every one we've done in the last 7 years. And I think part of that was inviting them in and having them be part of the process and having them involved, not one-on-one, in big groups. Everyone said to me, Sam, you're crazy. Don't bring them into a big group like this because 1 or 2 guys are going to attack you and then you're going to infect everybody else. And it's going to become a whole zoo. And I said, absolutely not. I said, it's actually the opposite effect. If you believe that most people are logical and most people are looking at doing things great, if you have 1 or 2 in the room that start to do something that's not logical or say things that are so inappropriate, everybody else in the room that's logical starts to listen and say, this is crazy. And they actually start to divide the lines and actually start to support what you're doing because they realize that the people that are doing that are actually not contributing and not serving a very good purpose. They're actually trying to disrupt rather than encourage. So it actually has the exact opposite effect of what everybody thinks. And I've discovered that. It may be uncomfortable for the 10-15 minutes or the hour that you're there, but afterwards when everybody does an autopsy on this and they start to look and listen, they realize that, you know, what that person's saying is not, or those people are saying are not accurate. So the good always comes out, I think, at the end. Yes?
Sorry, I have 2 questions, but the first question you don't need to, you don't have to answer. But the second one, yes, I need to answer. The first question is, was the putting in the title the name of the owners and putting the stone on the new house? It was part of the negotiation with the owners?
No. It was, I wanted to do it because the children owned it, and when I was going through it and looking at everything, I saw what the father and the grandfather and everybody had done, and I saw how much history was there. And I was empathizing and putting myself in the children's shoes. If I was the son of Stollery's, of Gordon Stollery, what would I want as a son if I owned this property for 114 years? And I was putting that hat on. What would I be thinking? And I said, if I was the son and this was my responsibility, I would want to somehow remember and celebrate my family because it's been in the family for 114 years. And so I said, you know, I think I had a duty to put that into place, and they didn't care about it that much. But it was, some of them really didn't matter and some of them it did, but it made an impact where I just said, it's a tribute to your family. And I think it went a long way, but that happened after we had done the deal, not before. And I got lucky. I registered it. Now the thing was, I decided to register it on title only because I wanted to make sure that that promise I made was going to happen. It was very good because later on, something that I didn't even expect, it showed that what we did months earlier, we were thinking about it. And it was just by coincidence. It wasn't even by, it was chance.
Thanks for answering. The second question is the new high-rise, new guideline is 7,500